In order for me to properly discuss the incorporation of SOGI education and sexual health education, I think it is first important to recognize that many of you have no idea what SOGI is or what sexual health education actually entails. SOGI stands for Sexual Orientation and Gender Identity. Sexual health education includes everything from what sex is to safety, STIs, consent, how to feel safe, and what to do if you don't. This content is not only relevant for members of the LGBTQ+ community and students that are sexually active, but it's actually relevant for every student. Axiology is the branch of philosophy that focuses on what we value. Two fundamental values of our current society are sex and feeling accepted. And whether or not those two things are valuable to you specifically, they are likely valuable or will become valuable to the majority of your students. In the same way that our students value sex and acceptance, a school should value the health and safety, mentally, emotionally, and physically, of each and every student. When interviewing a counselor from a Christian school, an important point was brought up in regard to the idea that teaching students SOGI principles will sway them to identify in a way that they would not otherwise, and that teaching sexual health education other than abstinence only will cause the students to walk out of the classroom to go have sex. Mary Warnock writes in her article, The Neutral Teacher, the idea that if students change their views to fit those of the teachers, and they do not actually fundamentally agree with them, then time will remedy this if remedy is needed. The counselor said something along the lines of, if students think that there is something that they're not, because they're now aware that such a person exists, then they will eventually realize who they are, and at the same time, they will now be educated on those around them who may identify differently than themselves, and they will be able to appreciate and accept those people. Everyone's axiologies are different. Our different backgrounds and experiences allow us to have a certain set of values. We are doing our students a disservice by not giving them the knowledge and resources to be able to understand the differing values of those around them and to be open-minded. I attended a Christian school where I was trapped in a Christian bubble, and therefore abstinence-only education was taught to me. I did not realize how detrimental my ignorance was until I left the bubble and was exposed to a whole new world that I did not know existed, and I was left feeling alone, confused, and vulnerable. This is not to say that all Christian schools teach abstinence only, but often we tell ourselves that our axiologies can only include one thing, and we close our minds to anything else. It is often assumed that because the Bible has a particular set of guidelines about sex, that Christians cannot learn about it in any other context. And Michael J. Reese highlights this in his article, Conflicting Philosophies of School Education. He says, all the major religions have something to say about human sexuality. Identifying with a certain religion, yes, does have an impact on your axiology, but that does not mean that we cannot be educated on anything outside of our particular set of beliefs. In addition, attending a school with a particular set of beliefs does not necessarily mean that every student holds those values as well. By not teaching from an open perspective that is inclusive of all people, we are causing students to think that all people fit into the same small box. And when they learn otherwise, they will not have the understanding of the respect, acceptance, and love that all people deserve. In terms of SOGI, the official SOGI website outlines that 64% of the LGBTQ+ students feel unsafe in their schools. This statistic is likely not surprising, but that does not make it any less heartbreaking. There are students who have to go to school every day feeling alone, scared, and misunderstood. Your values as a teacher should be for no student to ever feel this way. And one way to work towards helping this 64% is to include SOGI education in your classroom and in your school. Going back to the fundamental value of being accepted, SOGI allows for students who feel alone and confused to have the knowledge and resources to feel safe and supported in the journey of discovering who they are. The question that helped me to form this EDTalk is, how does the incorporation of SOGI education and sexual health in elementary and middle schools open us up to the values of differing people, and how can people whose views do not line up with SOGI still value the education that it provides for students, especially those that are at risk? As I delved into how SOGI and sexual health education can fit into every school system despite the differing values of the school and its students, I came to the conclusion that the incorporation of SOGI in sexual health education is relevant despite any particular set of values, because it focuses on creating a safe, inclusive, and respectful environment, which is something that should be endorsed by every school. Educational philosopher Paulo Freire developed the pedagogy of the oppressed, and his emphasis was on freedom and social revolution in the classroom and how every student deserves justice. This connects beautifully with the idea of SOGI in sexual health education through its inclusive nature and its ability to advocate for students who feel unseen or are lost and in need of resources and support. In no way does the incorporation of SOGI in sexual health education teach students that they need to feel or act or identify a certain way, but rather it allows for open conversation, which can easily go with any religion or moral beliefs that people may have. Applying this practically can vary depending on the school and the particular needs of the students. It may include teaching about safety and protecting our bodies as early as kindergarten. It can include letting students know about counseling services and providing them a safe space to be who they are. It can include the creation of a gay-straight alliance, or even just conversation about the LGBTQ+ community, and about the vocabulary involved in acting respectfully and honoring who people are in a way that students address one another. It can include letting students know that if something has happened to them that was not consensual, that it was not their fault, and providing them the resources to begin that healing process. As educators, you know your students better than I do, so I cannot tell you exactly what they need to hear, but they deserve for you to put thought into how you can incorporate SOGI principles and how you can teach sexual health education in a way that is inclusive and fits their needs. I encourage you to use the SOGI website that is behind me to learn more about what you can do in your schools as you begin to have this open conversation. Thank you.